Yes, so hi everyone and a warm welcome to our channel. I hope you are doing well. Studies and preparations are going on. To support your CA final IDT paper number 5 preparation, we are starting up with certain revision lectures and that are going to be 100% English. So all our dear students, subscribers from South, we had a lot of requests for English revision lectures. So here we are starting. Ensure that you are liking and commenting so that it helps me to reach more students. And you can also, if you genuinely like the content, share with your friends. Yes. Come on. So before starting formally with the chapter number 1 supply, we are going to be covering certain definitions that are useful for chapter number 1. So definitions, whatever relevant are, we will be covering along with every chapter. Okay. So let's start with the basic definition of business, because GST is applicable in the context of business. If I'm doing something in a personal capacity, in the personal work, that is not my business. GST has no applicability. So business, you don't need to learn the definitions, just need to understand on a basic level that business includes every form of trade, every form of business, every form of vocation, every kind of profession, every kind and activity with respect to all these activities. So it is a wide coverage. Yes, and there is no requirement that there should be any kind of a volume, frequency, continuity or regularity. So it is possible that a person conducts one transaction that can be termed as business. Yes, but in the ICAI material, there is one example that I will quickly clarify. That for example, there is a housewife and she sells gold. Okay, now that is a one transaction. Let's say the transaction goes above 50 lakhs, 40 lakhs, whatever it may be. So can we term that as a business? So here two schools of thought exist. One saying that because this is specifically mentioned in the law, that volume and frequency does not matter, so we can say that she is conducting business. Another point of view, the another school of thought that is a more logical one, is that she is not conducting a business, right? Because intention matters. She sold that old bangles, whatever old jewelry she had, that is not a business that she is conducting. That happened to be a one-time transaction in the nature of personal capacity. Okay, so that material example covers that. Apart from that, any kind of acquisition of goods, sale of goods, club, association, society, services given to the members, that are also business. Admission for consideration of persons to any premises. So all the admission tickets, for example, I'm visiting any amusement park, so that is also kind of a supply only, that is also kind of a business only. Services supplied by a person as the holder of any office. So for example, I am holding a office as a technical consultant, for which I'm not drawing a salary, because salaried person will get excluded from GST through schedule number 3. And let's say I'm drawing a salary, a consulting amount, that is also part of my business. Activities of race club, including by way of a totalizer. Totalizer is a device basically that helps to match the bets, deduct the commission and pay the winning amount to the winners. Apart from that, any activity engaged undertaken by government, central, state, local authority in which they are engaged as public authorities. So for transportation service, railway services, those services where it is engaged as a public authority, not sovereign functions, public authority functions, that are also part of business. Now the main two definitions that you need to cover is goods and services, because goods and service tax we know it is a mandatory payment, but what do you mean by goods and what do you mean by services? So understand that every kind of movable property is goods except money and securities. So money and securities are not goods, money and securities are not services. So goods means every kind of movable property, including actionable claims. Now what are actionable claims? In simple words, some claims on the basis of which you can take an action. For example, some unexpired reward points, for example insurance claim, those are actionable claims. So all actionable claims are goods, but in schedule number 3, we will send all the actionable claims outside the scope of GST except specified actionable claims. Now, what are specified actionable claims? In short, the conclusion is that specified actionable claims are under the ambit of GST. The short code name to learn this is High Court Blog. High Court Blog means horse racing, okay, C casino, B betting, L lottery, O online gaming money, and G is the gambling. Online money gaming is the only good which is intangible in nature. So these High Court block specified actionable claims are still under the scope of GST. Is this clear? The second clause specifying is that goods includes crops, grass, things attached to or forming part of the land, provided they are agreed to be severed before supply or under a contract of supply. Severed means cut. So under that contract or before the supply, they are going to be cut, because unless and until they are cut, they are not movable. They are not movable, right? So once they are severed, you can move it from one place to another. So in that case, they will form a part of good. If not severed, and if it is severed after the supply, then also it will not be good. It should be done before or during the contract of supply in order to fall under goods. Second definition, important, services. What is services? Services means anything apart from goods. Money, securities is still excluded from the ambit of the services. Yes. So money and securities is not under the ambit of GST because it is not good, it is not services. If something is not goods, not services, GST cannot be applied. Sir, what about the activities with respect to securities and activities with respect to money? For example, changing form of money, denomination of money. If let's say I am giving you 2000 rupee notes and I am taking 100 rupee notes for which I am charging a consideration. So any activity for which consideration is separately charged, that will form a service, and there the GST will be applicable. For example, securities are outside the scope of GST. But what about brokerage? Brokerage, a separate activity for which consideration is charged, GST is very much applicable. I hope this is clear. India, general definition you need to understand. India means the landmass of India as per article number 1, Constitution of India. Territorial waters of India till 12 nautical miles from the coastline. Beyond that, continental shelf, another 12 nautical miles, and exclusive economic zone, that is 200 nautical miles from the coastline. This entire part is India. Then whatever below the territorial waters, the sub-sea, the sea and the underground, below the territorial waters, that is also part of India. Then whatever airspace is above the landmass and the territorial waters of India, whatever is airspace, that is also part of India. This is a basic understanding of what do you mean by India. So till exclusive economic zone, it is covered as India till 200 nautical miles. Beyond that, it is known as high seas. High seas is not a part of India. Okay, these are the basic definitions which I wanted to cover. Supplier and recipient also I will cover. See, supplier, just a minute. There was one small deeming proviso with respect to supplier. Understand, supplier is the person who is giving the supply. What is supply? I will be covering that. So supplier means the person who is giving the supply. It can be some person who is representing me in the supply. For example, I am selling goods. So it is possible that I am selling the goods and later on I can sell the goods through my own person. So that person is representing me. It's fine. For you, I am the supplier because you contracted with me. So there is a deeming proviso exists with respect to specified actionable claims. What is this deeming proviso? Deeming proviso means something. What is the meaning of deem? Deem means you are stating something which is actually not in, not in reality. So you are assuming something. With respect to specified actionable claims, the law tries to increase the scope of the meaning of supplier. So here, whatever people are involved in the supply, whatever people are running, let's say kind of a platform, all these specified actionable claims generally are, traded and they are basically dealt with in electronic platforms. For example, betting 360, some site is there like betting 365, Dream 11. So these are all the electronic platforms on which the dealing and supply of specified actionable claims happens. So all those people who are managing that electronic platform, or all those people who are organizing or arranging this kind of specified actionable claims, they shall also be considered as supplier. They are actually not a supplier. They are someone involved in that particular arrangement of the supply, but they will be termed as supplier because government wants to ensure that if tomorrow the actual supplier we are not able to identify or we are not able to recover GST from them, we will hold these people as the suppliers and we will recover GST from them. Okay, so we are basically increasing the ambit, the scope of supplier only for specified actionable claims. I hope this is clear. Now, what do you mean by recipient? Very important. Meaning of recipient, you have to understand if consideration is there or not there. If consideration is there, then see who is liable to pay the consideration. Liable to pay, not actually paying, liable to pay. If there is no consideration, see to whom goods and services are being given. So goods where you are delivering, to whom you are delivering, services to whom you are rendering, that will be considered as recipient for me. Okay. Again, agent is included for the purpose of recipient. You and me were the seller. I was the seller. I was selling goods to you. Tomorrow you said that, sir, instead of me, just deliver it to him. He is my agent. So, okay. That agent is also for me, my recipient only. Yes. So it includes agent acting on behalf of recipient. So this is the basic definition that I wanted to cover. One thing you have to understand, Delhi, Puducherry and Jammu and Kashmir will be considered as states, though in reality they are union territories. Okay, but what about balance? Andaman, Nicobar, Lakshadweep, Dadra Nagar Haveli, Ladakh, Chandigarh, other territory is a residuary clause. So all these will be considered as union territories only. Sir, what is the implication of stating this? Implication is that if intrastate transaction happens in Delhi, you will apply CGST and SGST. But if intrastate transaction happens in Ladakh, you will apply CGST and UTGST. Okay, so depending upon state and UT. This is okay. This is okay. Online money gaming, you just have to understand the games that you play in which you use the online gaming money, the virtual assets that you use, right? For that, you can pay in real money or you can use virtual digital assets, for example, Bitcoin or any form of a cryptocurrency. So to buy the online gaming money like the PUBG and everything, it happens, right? So children buy, not children, actually people also play. So they buy the online gaming money which is used in that game To buy that, they use real money, or they can use virtual digital assets, cryptocurrency, or some kind of any form of virtual digital assets. And that basically that gaming may it whether or not its outcome is based on skill, chance, or both. So it does not matter what is the nature of that gaming. It does not matter to us whether there is a skill involved or not. For us, it is a game, some online money is involved, that is a part of online money gaming, and it will form part of a specified actionable claim. Yes, okay. And it also does not matter whether it is legal or not. So we want to tax it. Very important to understand, we want to tax it. We don't care if it is legal or not, whether it is permitted by law or not. So permissible or otherwise under any other law. So with this, I think basics are covered. Whatever definitions we may require while covering the provisions, then we will refer to that definition. Okay, so let's start with chapter number 1, supply. What is supply? Supply is a taxable event. Taxable event means an event which gives rise to tax consequence. So if supply happens, GST will be applicable. Let's start formally with section number 7, meaning and scope of supply. So section number 7, subsection 1 is divided into 4 clauses, A, AA, B and C. Okay, then 1A and subsection 2. So section 7.1 basically talks about the parameters of supply. Important thing to understand is supply is an inclusive definition. The government is trying to play it safe. It is not an exhaustive definition. Means implies it is exhaustive, includes implies it is inclusive. So supply includes all the forms of supply like transfer, sale, barter, exchange. I'm not going into the details of these terms. These are not legally defined. These are very common understanding terms. So sale, license, barter, exchange you are doing. So all forms of supply made or agreed to be made for consideration. So you are doing, or maybe you are agreeing to do, but consideration is there. There is one exception to this parameter, that is schedule number 1. Schedule number 1, without consideration, it is a supply. Then third parameter is it should happen in the course of furtherance of business. But again, there is one exception to this, section 7, subsection 1, clause number B, that I will be covering in a few minutes. So at the offset, there are 3 parameters to supply. All the forms of supply, including whatever sale, purchase, sale, purchase, sale, you are transferring, license, barter, for consideration, right? For consideration. And third for business. Consideration exception schedule number 1, business exception 7.1b. And obviously the form of supply should be of goods or services. That's why I have analyzed the definition here. So money and securities will be outside here. There is no exception for this condition, so it will not be a supply. Okay, next, AA is a clarification. AA is more of a clause specifically inserted to overrule a judgment of Supreme Court. What does this say? All the activities or transactions by person other than individual to its members. So it is talking about entities like clubs. So if there is a club and there is a member of that club, whatever club is given to member or vice versa is a supply, provided there is a consideration. So sir, why did this particular clause number AA was inserted? There was a ruling in case of Calcutta Club Limited. There was a ruling in case of Calcutta Club Limited where the Supreme Court had said that club and its members are not separate people. They are one and the same person. And in general, for a transaction of GST to take place, for a supply to take place, there should be a supplier and recipient. They have not stated this here specifically. They have just stated by a person. They have not stated by a person to a person. So by to they have not stated, but it is very obvious, right? By a person to a person, supplier and recipient. So Supreme Court stated that because of doctrine of mutuality, the club and member are not separate people. A club is not separate from its members, so it is not a supply. So that basically hurt the ego of the government, basically in simple words, and the government brought in a change. It inserted clause number AA, section number 7.1 AA, wherein it stated that this is a supply regardless, and ignoring means notwithstanding any other law, notwithstanding any other judgment, notwithstanding any other ruling. So we are going to ignore everything. Yes, 7.1b is an exception to the business condition which says that import of services for consideration, whether or not you do it for business. So import of services for consideration parameter is still intact, whether or not you do it for business. So let's say I'm a person, I'm importing architectural services for my home and I'm paying for it. So all other conditions are satisfied. It is a service, it is a consideration is involved, but it is for my home, not business. Still it will be a supply. Okay, so I will have to pay GST under reverse charge mechanism. And C just gives the validity to schedule number 1 that talks about deemed supply. 3 schedules that you need to be very clear. Schedule number 1, schedule number 2, schedule number 3. Schedule number 1 deemed supply. Without consideration, it is a supply. Schedule number 2 clarifies what is goods, what is services. Schedule number 3 negative list, not a supply, neither goods nor services. 7.1a is nothing. It will just give validity to schedule number 2. Generally, schedules always have some kind of a legal reference in the section. So 7.1a gives that particular reference to schedule number 2, whether it is a goods or services. 7.2 talks about what is neither goods nor services. So that there we will cover schedule number 3. There we will cover a circular, and then another thing we will cover is a notification. So 3 things will be covered with respect to not a supply. So you don't have to learn 7.1a and 7.2. Now pay attention, certain specific cases clarified by the institute's material. Case number 1. Donation given to charitable organization, is it a consideration? If you say yes, then that will be a part of supply. If not, then it is not a supply, because consideration is one of the parameters. So here it will not be considered as consideration. It will not be under the scope of GST if 3 conditions are complied. Condition number 1, the gift or donation that I am making is to a charitable organization. Second, it should have a parameter, it should have a character, that is the objective is a gift or donation. I am not obtaining something in return. And third, the purpose is purely philanthropic. You should not be obtaining, you should not be getting any kind of advertisement or promotion in return. For example, I give a small donation to a temple nearby, and there they use it to make a room, and below that they have stated with good wishes from Mr. Siddhesh. This is a pure charity, this is not consideration. I am not getting something in return, no GST. But if they write with good wishes from Mr. Siddhesh, chartered accountant, owner, S. Valimbe Classes Private Limited. So if they mention my business, that means I am getting promotion and advertisement in return. In that case, that will be considered under the GST. Second, artwork is sent. So I make a painting, I send it to a gallery for the purpose of exhibition. This is not a supply. Why? Because there is no consideration involved. And schedule number 1 also is not applicable here. Tomorrow when the painting will be sold from the gallery, then yes, it will be a supply by me to that person. Gallery will charge commission. That will be another supply. Next, no claim bonus. What is no claim bonus? In the insurance sector, let's say he's Mr. Sharma, this is ICICI Lombard, or let's take my example. I have a policy from ICICI Lombard in a particular year 24-25. I had the policy, I paid the premium of 10,000. The premium is, let's say, fixed for 10,000 rupees. In year 24-25, I did not make any claim. I did not file any claim. So next year ICICI Lombard was very happy with me because I did not claim anything. So it decided to give me no claim bonus because I did not claim. The ICICI Lombard is very happy with me. So now it is giving me no claim bonus. What is no claim bonus? Next year it says, Mr. Siddhesh, instead of the 10,000 premium that you were supposed to pay, you can pay us 8,000. So that 2,000, is it any form of a consideration? That 2,000 earning, kind of a earning for me, kind of a benefit for me, is it a consideration? Am I supplying something? Am I giving any service to ICICI Lombard against which I am earning no claim bonus? Answer is no, because I was not under contractual obligation not to make any claim. You always have to understand with what intention you are entering into a contract. I entered into this contract to save myself, to provide indemnity in case, touchwood, I fall ill and then hospital bill is there. I was not under contractual obligation to not file claim. I was not with the intention to earn the no claim bonus. It just happened on the sideline. So that is not a consideration because intention was not there, obligation was not there. Yes, next we will talk about one of the amendments which was inserted for May 25, breakage. What do you mean by breakage, salvage value or break value? So basically a car is there, the car has been destroyed or car has reached its expiry, and now whatever is left is the salvage value, the break value. So let's assume I have a insurance policy from a general insurance company, and now the expiry of period has happened or my car is destroyed, whatever it is, my focus is on what about the salvage value. Now let's say this car, whatever that car left is, its value is final 50,000 rupees. This is the salvage value, the final, the kabadi bhav that we say, that the final salvage value is 50,000 rupees. Now, what will be the GST implication with respect to this salvage value in the hands of the general insurance company, right? I had a policy from, let's say, Reliance General Insurance. Now we are talking about what about this particular wreckage value? What about this salvage value? So it depends on whether the claim was filed, right? The compliance of conditions was done. The car has met with an accident. The salvage value is there. Now, because I had a policy from Reliance Industries, the Reliance General Insurance, now I filed a claim. Now let's say the claim was 5 lakh rupees. Yes, and let's say the break value that I took in my example, for simplification, I will take that as 10,000 rupees. So salvage value is 10,000. Now suppose the insurance company deducts 50,000 from it, and pays me 4,50,000. What is the implication? What does this mean in reality? This means that the company is not buying this salvage value from me. Company says that Siddhesh, you keep the car. The car value is 50,000. The total claim was 5 lakh. Out of 5 lakh, that, oh sorry, for 10,000, right? For 10,000. So this will be 4,90,000. This will be 4,90,000. Yes. So whatever the claim, whatever the value is, you keep that. You sell it on your own. So out of the total, we will deduct 10,000 because the 10,000 you are going to realize by selling it on your own. So if that general insurance company deducts the value of breakage from the motor vehicle as deductible, from that claim amount as deductible, it means that I'm going to sell it on my own. So will there be any GST implication in the hands of that general insurance company? Answer is no. See, the salvage remains the property of the insured because it deducted, right? It deducted. It is not buying it from me. Had the general insurance company been in the mood to buy it from me, if the intention would have been to buy it from me, it wouldn't have deducted. It would have paid me the full value. Then I would have transferred the salvage to the insurance company. So in this case, the insurance company is not liable to discharge any GST liability because it is not buying it from you. But if it does not deduct, so the general insurance says to me, Mr. Siddhesh, I will pay you. We will pay you the entire 5 lakh rupees. Now that 5 lakh includes 10,000 because we are not deducting. Otherwise, we would have paid 490. So now we are paying for that particular salvage also. Now you give that salvage to us and we will sell this salvage to a salvage buyer. In that case, that sale of salvage, the sale of that brake by the insurance company to a salvage buyer, GST will be applicable because it is a part of the insurance company's business. So if it does not deduct the value, the salvage becomes property of the insurance because it is paying for it. Had it been non-paying, it would have paid 490, not 5 lakh. Yes. And the insurance company will be obligated to discharge GST on the supply of salvage to the salvage buyer. Next, we will talk about a very important clarification that was inserted with respect to your May 25 ICAI material. Replacement under warranty. Now, what is warranty? Warranty is some period is there in which whatever happens to my goods, the supplier or the distributor from whom I have bought the goods will replace it under free of cost. So they will give the goods replacement also and they will give me the services also free of cost. In general, whenever something is free of cost, the parameter of consideration is missing. Since the consideration is missing, it will not be a supply. If there is not a supply, then there will be no GST implication. Is this correct? Yes. Now we will discuss various scenarios. Now, two scenarios are possible. Either I am buying directly from a manufacturer. So I will take an example. I will also cover this particular thing from a handwritten note. So these notes we actually make in the class, but I will refer that for your understanding in the revision itself, revision also. So two scenarios are case number one. Let's say I'm buying a computer from Dell Computers. Dell is the manufacturer. I'm buying directly from Dell. Second case, let's say I'm buying Dell computer from a distributor. Let's name the distributor as Aditi Enterprises. Okay. So Aditi Enterprises is a distributor. So Dell sold it to Aditi. Aditi distributed, that is sold it to me. Okay, so case number one, the original equipment manufacturer, that is Dell. So warranty is offered by Dell. When any replacement happens, will there be GST? No, because there is no consideration, as simple as that. Will any ITC reversal be required by the manufacturer? No. ITC reversal when happens? When does it happen? When the output supply is exempt. Is this exempt? The Dell, whatever replacement it does provide to me, is this an exempt supply? No, it is not a supply itself. Exempt supply means something should be a supply first. Section 2 clause 47, very important, understand it if you are not clear. Section 2 clause 47 exempt supply include three things. First, nil rated supply. Second is your exemption notification that we cover in chapter number 4. And third, non-taxable supplies. Now what is non-taxable supply? In GST we have only two types of non-taxable goods. There is no non-taxable service. In goods, there are two types, two particular goods. First, alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Yes. And second is your 5 petroleum products. Alcoholic liquor for human consumption and petroleum 5 products are outside the scope of GST. These are non-taxable goods. Is this clear? So let's continue. Will manufacturer be required to reverse any ITC? No, because it is not making any exempt supply. ITC reversal happens once I take ITC for inward supply and my outward supply is exempt. So ITC reversal needs to happen. Now scenario number 2, distributor is involved in the picture. So I buy something from Aditi Enterprises, my example that I will be covering, and Aditi Enterprises has bought from the Dell. So issue number one, between distributor and customer, no change. Whatever I have studied, whatever I have covered above, that stands same. That Aditi Enterprises in this case will be replacing the parts free of cost, but the concept of GST is absolutely same. That there is no consideration, parameter is missing, hence there will be no GST. Yes, if some consideration is charged, then GST will be applicable. But four situations are possible when the distributor and manufacturer will deal with it. Why deal? See, the liability of warranty is on manufacturer, that is Dell. But here, because Aditi Enterprises was involved in the picture, Aditi Enterprises provided me replacement. But whose liability was it? The liability belonged to the Dell. So now the Dell and Aditi Enterprises are going to deal with each other. Aditi Enterprises will call to Dell and say, Dell, it was your liability. It was your liability to replace to Siddhesh, but I have done it because I had sold. Now let's deal with each other. I want that recovery from you. Why recovery? Because I have replaced the goods to Mr. Siddhesh. That was not my liability. So let's adjust the amount. Now how that adjustment happens, four cases, four situations will depend. Yes. Now we are not going to cover from here. We are going to cover in a very, very effective manner from here. See, warranty, distributor is involved in the picture, and we are talking about distributor and manufacturer. Why? Because liability is of manufacturer. So pay attention. In situation number one, I called Aditi, that Aditi Enterprises, I had bought a computer from you, the part is not working, please replace it. Now what Aditi Enterprises does, first it provides replacement. First means whatever is happening first and whatever is happening next. So Aditi Enterprises provides replacement from own stock or it purchases from market. So the distributor uses its own stock or buys from market. I don't care. I need replacement. So here will GST be applicable? No, because there is no consideration. Aditi did not charge anything from me. Next, Aditi calls Dell and says that Mr. Dell, I have provided the replacement to Mr. Siddhesh, but that is your liability. Now how to deal? Dell says, don't worry. Why are you shouting? Give me a tax invoice now. Give me a tax invoice, charge me for it because you have used your own stock or you have incurred an expense. So Aditi Enterprises will provide a tax invoice. Now when a tax invoice is there, consideration is there, this is the normal GST supply. So GST will be applicable. So it will give tax invoice charging GST and Dell will provide the payment along with the GST. Dell will take the ITC of that GST. Simple. Now next, situation 4 I am covering first because it is linked to somewhere similar to situation number 1. Now what happens? I called Aditi for replacement. Aditi provided me replacement from its own stock. It did not buy from market. It used its own stock. But when Aditi called Dell for adjusting this amount, Dell said that let's do one thing. Don't give me a tax invoice. You give me a requisition for whatever part you replaced. I will give you that part. I will replace your part. So whatever, let's say you replace the laptop, I will give you laptop in return because you used your own stock. So I will replenish that. You just raise a request. Law clarified, CBSE clarified that on this replenishment there will be no GST applicable. Ideally, in normal cases, this could have been a part of supply. It could have been a part of supply because this is kind of a selling only. But here the CBSE clarified that no GST on this replenishment. Clear? So this happened first, then this happened. Next, situation number 2. Situation number 2, what happened? I called Aditi for replacement. Aditi did not immediately give me replacement. First, it raised a request to Dell. Above what was happening, first the replacement happened, then the request was raised. Here, first requisition request was raised. Dell provided the laptop that okay. Basically, Aditi called Dell and said that Siddhesh, a customer, has some problem, so I need to replace. Please give me the laptop, I have to replace. Okay. So what does Dell do? Dell will provide that particular laptop to Aditi Enterprises for the purpose of replacement, and then that laptop Aditi will come at my home and replace it free of cost. Here there will be no GST because no consideration. Here also there will be no GST. Indirectly what is happening? Dell is providing the replacement to me indirectly with Aditi in middle. What is the difference between situation 4 and situation 2? Here first replacement happened, then the requisition was raised. Here first requisition was raised, then the replenishment happened. Basically the warranty replacement happened. Is this clear? So technically we are not naming replenishment here. Why? Because in above case, the first replacement happened and then that stock was replenished by Dell. But here first request happened. So there was nothing to be replenished. And that was given ahead to the customer. Situation number 3, very, very important. What happened? I wanted certain replacement services. Aditi had bought, let's say, 4 laptops from Dell. Pay attention. Aditi had bought 4 laptops from Dell. Out of that stock only, Aditi gave 1 laptop and replaced to me free of cost. So this is not using of own stock. This is using of the stock from the manufacturer. Now Aditi will call Dell that Dell, you have charged me for 4 laptops. I have paid you for 4 laptops. Your tax invoice was for 4 laptops. But out of those 4 laptops, 1 laptop I have replaced to the customer, that was your liability. So Dell says, okay, so the net transaction between us is of these 3 laptops. I should charge you for 3 laptops, but the original tax invoice was for 4 laptops. So for that 1 laptop which has been replaced, a credit note will be issued. Section number 34. And you know, in credit note, the GST adjustment happens only if Aditi also reduces the ITC of this particular laptop. This you already know under section 34. Okay. I think this was useful. Can I move ahead? Yes. What about the warranty services? Again, those are free of cost, no GST. Extended warranty scenario number 3. What about extended warranty? Now understand the concept of composite supply and mixed supply that you already know. I'm briefly revising. Composite supply means there is a bundle of goods, services, taxable goods, taxable services, but that bundle is in the ordinary course of business. So that is a natural bundle. For example, laptop bought with a laptop bag, right? Hotel with a breakfast service, air travel with food. So these are natural bundles. What is mixed supply? Anything that is not a composite supply is a mixed supply. For example, a hamper, Diwali hamper that you buy, all the different items consisting, that is a mixed supply. For example, I have 2 floors of house. One is commercial rental and one is a residential rental, but I make one bid for the both. So that case, that's a mixed supply, right? Taxation differs for both. Composite supply is taxed at the rate of the principal element. Principal element is the predominant element in that bundle. So laptop and laptop bag, predominant element is laptop. So that tax rate will apply. But what about the mixed supply? The taxation of mixed supply, how it will happen? It will be taxed at the rate of the highest element. So let's say 4 items are involved in a particular bundle, out of which one is taxed at 5, another 12, another 28. And another, let's say another 2 are 5%, one is 12% and one is 28%. So the 28% rate will be applied on the entire value of the bundle. That is the simple thing. In case of extended warranty, what is extended warranty? I pay something and I get, let's say 1 or 2 years more warranty along with the goods that I'm buying. If I'm buying extended warranty at the original time of supply of goods, so I'm buying, let's say this goods, I'm buying this goods, and along with it, I'm buying extended warranty from the same supplier. This is a composite supply. This will not be taxed separately, okay, because this becomes a bundle. But if at the time of the original purchase, let's say this is a phone of Vivo, and while buying the extended warranty, I buy the warranty from, let's say, Redmi. I'm just taking a vague example. I'm just trying to differentiate the names. So if you're buying from someone else, then that will not be a bundle. Okay, so regardless of buying at the same time, if you buy from some other person, that is not a bundle. So in that case, the warranty will be taxed separately. But if you buy at any time after original supply, you bought the goods today, you buy the warranty tomorrow or day after tomorrow, basically after the original supply, then that will obviously be taxed separately. For bundle, it needs to happen together. Next, preferential location charges. Now, what is preferential location charges? Let's say there are 4 floors, but the view from 4th floor is classic, super stunning view, and the first floor, it's not very good. The developer says that first floor is available for 1 CR. If you want 4th floor, if you want to prefer 4th floor, you will have to pay 20 lakhs more for it, because the view is amazing. It's stunning in the evening. So I agree to buy that whatever the base price is, and plus I'm agree to give 20 lakhs for my preferential location. So that is known as location charge or PLC, preferential location charge. This is applicable for residential as well as commercial properties. That particular location charge is a part of the bundle of a composite supply where the principal element is the house or property that you are buying. So you're not going to charge, you're not going to tax that PLC separately. Simple? Yes? Okay. Whether the property will be taxed under GST or not, that is a separate issue depending upon it is an under construction property or it is a complete property. Next, another clarification that was inserted with respect to your material, that let's say there is a company HUL Limited in India. There is this is a subsidiary of Unilever. So this is the main holding. This is a subsidiary. HUL gives an option to the employee of HUL. So this company is giving an option to its own employee that you can buy shares, you can subscribe the shares of our holding company. So shares are of the holding company. The company which is giving option is the subsidiary company. The employees of also of the subsidiary company. Now you have to understand the GST implication in all these transactions. First of all, tell me, when this option is given to this person, is this under GST? Answer is no. Why? Whatever the employee gives to the, whatever an employee works in the course of employment for its company, that is covered under schedule number 3. Similarly, all the perquisites, all the salary, all these options are also part of that same particular transaction which is outside the scope of GST. So salary, whatever you are paying, perquisites that you are paying under the contractual obligation, that is of the employment contract, that are also outside the scope of GST. So no GST here. Tomorrow, if this person subscribes for the securities, if the Unilever allots the securities, that is also outside the scope of GST. Why? Because securities are neither goods nor services. But tell me one thing, another transaction is that this particular company is allotting the securities, so it needs the payment for security. Who will pay? HUL. Why? Because HUL has given this option, right? This is not going to buy. This is not going to pay. This person is only and only going to subscribe. It is a part of his employment contract. So who is going to pay for the securities of Unilever? HUL. When the HUL will pay, will that be under GST? Any kind of import of service, RCM? Answer is no. Again, allotment of securities, payment for securities is not under GST. Why? Because securities is not goods, security is not services. But sir, what if Unilever tomorrow, apart from this amount, recovers something known as administration charge, brokerage fee, convenience charge, anything over and above the cost of securities? In that case, that will be under the scope of GST, and that will be under import of services. Why? Because supplier will be outside India, importer will be in India, and the place of supply will also be in India under section number 13 subsection 2. This I will cover in chapter number 3, and RCM will apply. So all the transactions will be outside the scope of GST except if Unilever tomorrow recovers anything over and above the cost of securities. Is this clear? Next comes the concept of cost petroleum. Understand one simple thing. There is a oil exploration and production contractor. He enters into contract with government, center or state government, that is known as a production sharing contract. What is this production sharing contract? The government is going to grant a license to this particular contractor. Using that license, this person will get the right to extract oil or natural resources. Tomorrow the oil resources will be sold. We will get some amount. From that amount, we will first of all deduct whatever cost that I incur for the purpose of this digging and exploring the oil. And whatever amount is left, that will be distributed, that will be a profit. Out of that, I will give some amount back to the government. Why? It is a consideration for grant of license. Why license is given by the government? Because government is the inherent owner of all the natural resources. So example, Adani entered into a production sharing contract with government, right? Why? Because tomorrow against the license, the profit will be distributed with the government. Let's say oil was striked, the oil was discovered and the sale proceed was rupees 10. Out of 10, first of all, the contract cost will be reduced. So whatever expenses Adani did, that will be reduced. It is known as cost petroleum. So 2 rupees cost is reduced, whatever the amount is left, rupees 8, out of this some amount will go to the government, which is known as profit petroleum. Why it went to the government? Because it is a consideration against the supply of service. What service government gave? The government transferred the license, allowed the use to, okay, you can use our resources, you can try to find oil and sell it. Now the question comes that, sir, what is the taxability of cost petroleum and profit petroleum? Cost petroleum is not a supply. It is a recovery of cost, and this is something he did for himself. He did not, incur rupees 2 for government. He did it for himself. So cost petroleum per se is not a supply. So no GST implication. Profit petroleum, that is out of 8, let's say 3-4 rupees go to the government. Is this a supply? Answer is yes. All parameters of supply are being fulfilled here. Consideration is there. Supply of service is there in form of supply of license. But this is covered under chapter number 4 exemption, which says that profit petroleum is exempt. So net effect, profit petroleum will also be not under GST. Financial transactions, certain important points to be understand. Money and securities are outside the scope of GST. Securities per se is not defined under CGST Act, but it is defined under section 2 clause H of the Securities Contract Regulation Act, which includes shares, securities, derivatives, preference shares, debt instruments, everything is covered there. Yes, okay. Derivatives. What do you mean by derivatives? Derivatives are specifically included in the securities as per section 2 clause H of the Securities Contract Regulation Act. So derivatives are not under the scope of GST. But there are two forms of derivatives, forward contracts and future contract. In that, from the paper point of view, you just have to understand and see in the question, in that future or forward contract, I'm not going into the details of what the forward or future contract mean, but understand that there is some underlying asset involved, there is some commodity involved. So if tomorrow the question says that in that future or forward contract, when the time of expiry came, you are going under actual delivery, you're not net settlement, you're not going under net settlement. Net settlement means whoever is winning that bet of that amount difference, you pay the amount. And actual delivery means whatever the commodity was involved, you are actually delivering it. So if actual delivery happens, this will be considered as a normal supply of goods and GST will be applicable. But if you go under net settlement, it will retain the nature of securities and there will be no GST because securities is not in the scope of GST. Security debt and transactions in instruments. Instrument means interest rate swap, foreign currency swap, any kind of monetary swaps. All these instruments and secured debts are very much in the form of derivative. There is some underlying nature involved from which the derivative devolves the value, it draws the value. So secured debt and transactions in instruments are outside the scope of GST because they are also considered as derivatives. Derivatives are securities. Securities are neither goods nor services. But if you are charging something with respect to this debt and instrument, some kind of a side fee, some kind of a convenience charge, some kind of a documentation fee, then that will be considered a part of GST because it is a separate activity for which consideration is charged. Next, we talk about the topic of securities lending scheme. Now, what is the securities lending scheme and what is the GST implication? There is a lender who has a security. There is a borrower who needs to borrow securities. To make them meet, to create a market, there is an intermediary which is approved by the SEBI. So, SEBI registered intermediary is there. Intermediary is going to charge certain commission that is obviously going to be a part of the GST. But what about the lending fees? Understand one thing, the lines you need to state in the exam for marks. Disposal of securities is not under GST. Why? Because securities are not goods, not services. But here SLS does not involve disposal of securities. SLS involves lending of securities for which a separate consideration is charged. Hence, it becomes a supply of services. So lending fees, that is whatever this borrower is going to pay, that lending fee is going to be under GST, and plus I will link chapter number 2 here. This is also covered under RCM. Is this clear? So this line you need to learn that this does not involve disposal. Disposal of securities would have been outside GST, but this is not disposal. This is lending for which activity a separate consideration is charged. So GST is applicable. Okay. Next we talk about the cash calls in JV. What is a cash call in JV? The operating member of the JV calls the other members to provide the capital contribution that was promised. Now whatever the amount that was promised, whatever the cash they need to give. Now what will be the GST implication of that cash call? The call was made to call cash, that is the cash call in simplest words. Now what happens with respect to the GST implication? It depends on how that money is used. In case number 1, let's say I call 4 people, I call 100 rupees each from them, including me, let's say another 3 people, and that 400 rupees is accumulated and I go and buy a machine from outside India to be used in JV. This 400 was used to buy a machine. Now this acquires the nature of capital contribution. Capital contribution is not a supply. No supply is happening. This is merely purchasing of machinery. So that cash call is not under GST. But tomorrow, if I collect 400 rupees and I use my own machinery for the purpose of JV and I keep 400 rupees with myself, this means I am supplying a service of giving that particular machinery to JV. So that is not now capital contribution because I didn't go and buy a machine. I used my own machine. So in short, I am giving services to that particular JV in consideration of cash call. In that case, the cash call will be taxable. Clear? Next, we talk about schedule number 1. Schedule number 1 is deemed supply, activities which are considered supply regardless of consideration. In question paper, wherever you see free of cost, you just have to apply schedule number 1. Okay, let's start 4 paragraphs. Paragraph number 4 says that you are permanently disposing or transferring, not temporary. You're not getting it back. You're permanently disposing certain business assets where ITC was availed. So ITC was availed. Government gave you ITC so that you can use that ITC to set off against your output tax liability. And you use that machinery, that capital asset or whatever business asset in the business. But what are you doing? You are permanently disposing it off without charging consideration. So that's a loss of ITC to the government. Yes. So this will be considered as a deemed supply. And this can happen between holding subsidiary also. I don't care what is the relation of the parties between which transfer happens. Next, supply of goods services happening between related persons or distinct persons in the course or nature of business. Now here three things you need to understand. First, you need to understand what is the meaning of related person. Second, you need to understand what is the meaning of distinct person. Both are covered here. Related person is not defined in section number 2. It comes from explanation to section number 15. Section number 15 is the valuation. You just need to learn this properly. Not learn, I would say read this properly. Okay, one more thing in general you need to know. Person means it can be individual, it can be company, LLP, firm, any form of a structure. Income tax, you read the person, kind of like same situation, the same definition applies in the GST also. No analysis extra required for the definition of person. So person is individual also, company, entity, firm, LLP, everyone. So persons including legal persons means a company, LLP, can be related person when such persons are officers, directors of one another's businesses. I am a director in your business, you are a director in my business, we both are related. Such persons are legally recognized partners, we both are partners in a partnership firm. Such are employer-employee, you work for me, we both are related person. Any person directly and indirectly owns, controls minimum 25% of voting stock of both of them. A controls 26% of B and C. B and C are related to each other. Focus is on voting stock. Minimum 25%. Limit, please pay attention, not more, minimum. One of them directly and indirectly controls the other. Now what do you mean by control is not defined. Control in general means 51% voting, or you can say deciding some role in the corporate policy operation. So you are exercising some kind of a control. Facts of the question need to be seen. So one of them directly and indirectly controls the other. This and this are very simple. C controls A and B, or A and B controls C. So A and B in both cases will be related to each other. Part of the same family. Family is very important to understand. Pay attention. What do you mean by family? Spouse and children will always be family. Spouse and children, regardless of whether they are dependent or independent, they will always be family. Parents, grandparents and brother, sister will be included in the family with respect to me only if they are wholly or mainly dependent on me. So if the question says that I have a brother who is a well-known professional working in this industry, it means he is earning on his own, he is not wholly or mainly dependent on me. Yes, if it is written my grandfather has a very good pension amount, he is not dependent on me, he is not a family. What is the implication? If somebody is not a family, then he or she is not a related person, and then he and she will not be covered under schedule number 1, that is deemed supply. So you have to do interlinking as well. Yes? Okay. Next. Sole agent, sole concessionaire, sole distributor. I don't have many agents, I have only you. You are my sole agent. So sole what is important? Then you will be my related person. Normal agent, normal distributor, normal concessionaire, though who sell goods for me, I have more than one. Okay. So that is normal agent, they are not related person. Now let's understand the meaning of distinct person. Distinct person is covered under 25.4 and 25.5. Okay, very simple. Just pay attention. 25.4, you have two units. Two units are registered. It can be in one state. It can be in more than one state. Just understand the GST registration happens state-wise. But in one state also I can have more than one registration. So in that case, what will this be? This will be a part of a distinct person. So let's say I have two units in Delhi, both are registered. Any supply between them without the consideration will be covered under schedule number 1. I have one unit in Delhi, one unit in Maharashtra. Both will be distinct persons, that will be covered here. Both are registered. 25.4 will apply. What is 25.5? 25.5 is there is one unit registered in one state, let's say Delhi, and there is another unit in Maharashtra which may or may not be registered. So here two states are necessarily involved. Here there is one state or more than one state, I don't care because both are registered. Here one is in Delhi and that is registered. That is registered. But the other unit in Maharashtra may or may not be registered, but it should necessarily be different state. Then in that case, these are also distinct persons under 25 subsection 5. Is it clear? I will give you one example. Let's say I have one unit in Delhi which deals with my electronic business, and I have one unit in Maharashtra which deals with alcoholic liquor for human consumption. So because this is a non-taxable supply, I have not obtained registration for Maharashtra, but this is registered. So in that case, these both are under 25 subsection 5. What is the implication of distinct person? The supply between them of any goods and services will be covered under supply without consideration. Only condition is that business condition should exist. So it should not be something in personal capacity. Employer to employee, very important, pay attention. Employer to employee, if he is giving any kind of perquisites, these are outside the scope of GST. Why? Because perquisites are given pursuant to the contractual obligation, that is with respect to the salary contract. And whatever employee does for me in the course of employment, and whatever I give the salary and whatever the perquisites in respect to that agreement, they are outside the scope of GST. That we know. But what about gifts? Gifts are not part of the contractual obligation or any kind of a salary contract. This is happening over and above the salary contract or that contractual obligation. If you give gift to your employee, one employer, we are talking about individual, up to 50,000 in 1 year, that is outside, still outside the scope of GST. If this would not have been stated, this exemption would not have been given, then even rupee 1 gift would have been considered as a consideration and would have been taxable under GST. Yes. So if tomorrow question says that the employer gave 60,000 gift to 10 employees each, then 6 lakh rupees will be under GST obligation. Is this clear? Next, one more point to be noted, because now in next point I'm going to focus on that more. In my first paragraph, I'm talking only about goods. In my second paragraph, I'm talking about goods plus services both. In my third paragraph, I'm going to talk only about goods. Very important, pay attention. In fourth, I'm going to talk about services. You can write it down if you want, if you have my book. Otherwise, you can make your noting in your own book or understand this. What is paragraph number 3? Paragraph number 3 talks about the transfer of goods between principal agent. Okay, so that agent can supply ahead, or it is vice versa possible. Agent is receiving the goods and giving back to the principal. A lot of times we think that agent means who is supplying on our behalf. No, it can be supplying on our behalf or it can be receiving on our behalf. And what do you mean by agent? Agent means basically all form of agent, distributor, concessionaire, artiya, that is a Hindi word used, mercantile agent, factor, broker, commission agent, whether he is doing the business of supply or receipt of goods services on behalf of other. So he is doing on behalf of other, either supply or receipt. So this is just a general definition that you need to just read it. Okay, now let's focus. Here there is a condition known as invoice test, okay, that you already know. Here there is a condition of invoice test. What is invoice test? Invoice test is a simple test in which you understand and you need to see whether the invoice of supply, I am taking the example of supply, it can be receipt of goods also. If the agent is supplying the goods to customer, the invoice is in his name or not. If the further invoice is in his name, so the further invoice is in the name of agent, in that case between principal and agent also the transfer will be considered as supply under schedule number 1 paragraph number 3. So you just have to see this invoice test. Invoice for further supply means from agent to customer. So basically there are 3 people involved. See, there is a principal, there is an agent, there is a customer. Agent is giving customer the invoice in his own name. In that case, between them without consideration, the paragraph number 3 will apply, for which technically we write the words the agent is falling under the ambit of paragraph number 3 schedule number 1. If agent is giving the customer invoice not in his own name but directly in the principal name, then between them this is not a supply. As simple as that. It can be supply case, it can be receipt case, it can be receipt case also. Okay, one very important line that I am concluding. If I talk about services between principal agent, then consideration always needs to be there. Without consideration, services between principal agent will never be a supply. Why? Because paragraph number 3 principal agent is only talking about goods, not services. So for services, consideration needs to be there. Okay. Now let's talk about the issue of del trader agent. What do you mean by del trader agent? Del trader agent is an agent just like a normal agent with guarantee of payment to the supplier. How the guarantee is given? Basically, the DCA will give loan to the customer and that customer will pay the money to the principal. Later on, the loan will be recovered from the customer with the interest amount. Okay. So, 2 issues crop up. Issue number 1, whether the DCA falls under the ambit of paragraph number 3, schedule number 1, the answer is same. Apply the invoice test. Just because he's a DCA does not matter. Apply the same invoice test. Issue number 2, what about the interest charged by DCA? The interest charged from the customer with respect to that loan amount, because maybe the customer has defaulted. If the customer does not default, this issue will not apply because interest won't be applicable because loan is not there. Yes. Now, 2 cases are possible. DCA is not an agent under paragraph number 3. If DCA is not an agent, this is a technical line. Let's decode this. If DCA is not an agent, it means the invoice is issued by the principal to the customer, not by the agent in his own name. Yes. So in that case, how many activities are involved in the picture? There are 3 activities. Supply of goods by supplier to recipient, for which invoice is also directly issued. Supply of agency services by DCA to the principal and agent, to the principal and the customer. And third is, I am assuming the default happened, so loan given by DCA to the recipient. Now my question is, what about the interest on this loan? What about the interest on this loan? Will this form part of the valuation of goods by seller to the recipient, the principal to the customer? Answer is no. Why will it form part? Both are separate transaction. I am a DCA, I gave a loan to the customer, you are the principal, you supplied the goods. How do you care about what interest I am charging from the customer? So here it will not form part of the valuation. But second case, what if DCA is an agent under paragraph number 3? Now let's decode this. DCA is an agent means principal to agent is a separate supply, agent to customer is a separate supply, plus loan is given here. Now here 4 activities are involved. Activity number 1 is this supply. Activity number 2 is this supply. Activity number 3 is agency services. And activity number 4 is loan. Now the question comes, on this loan that is given, will interest form part of value of goods sold by agent to customer? Obviously it is not going to form part here between principal agent. But what about this? Is this loan transaction still an independent supply? No. Now it will be subsumed under this goods supply, because agent and customer, between them inter se also it is a supply. Now it is not an independent transaction. Interest will form part of this particular supply. This is what I say feel factor. Understand logics and have a feel of how the things are working. And if some student says that sometimes we are not able to understand the logic. So, law specifically states section number 15 2D specifically states that when you are selling goods and if there is an interest element involved, it is a part of valuation. So 15 2D also says this. Clear? Now, import of services, I will cover first, paragraph number 4. Paragraph 3 is clear. Paragraph number 4 is import of services. Now what is happening here? 7.1b I have already covered above. That talks about the import of services for consideration, business condition irrelevant. Now what is happening here? Consideration is not there, but business is there. But another condition that you should import from your own people. See, import of services by a person from related person or any of its own establishment outside India in the course or furtherance of business. So here consideration is not there, but business condition is there, and from whom you are importing. Related person, you know, and own establishment outside India. Let's say Reliance has one establishment Jio in India and one is Jio UK. So it will be own establishment. So let's make a short summary paragraph for this import condition. Pay attention everyone. Import of services given in question, first see consideration is there or not there. If consideration is there, you are not going to apply schedule number 1. You will apply 7.1b, business condition is irrelevant, it will be a supply. But if there is no consideration, you see 2 conditions as per paragraph number 4, schedule number 1. First condition, you are importing from related person or own establishment. Second, business condition. If both are satisfied, then yes, it is a supply under schedule number 1, paragraph number 4. In other cases, it will be not a supply. Is this clear? Okay. These are certain examples. You can stop the video and see with respect to 25.4 and 25.5 distinct person. One short example I will cover. Let's say in Uttar Pradesh, I have 2 units, Lucknow and Noida. And I have one registration. GST registration. Is this a case of distinct person? Answer is no. Because I have one registration, 25.4 does not apply. And because it is in one state, 25 subsection 5 does not apply. Is this clear? Yes? Okay. Now, one more thing. Perquisites I have already covered. Perquisites are a part of the salary contract, contractual obligation. So no GST here. Yes? Then one small thing I will cover with respect to OEM and CM. Now what is OEM and CM? A lot of areas where this happens. Original equipment manufacturer and component manufacturer. Let's say Apple is an original equipment manufacturer out of which battery is produced by the component manufacturer. To produce this battery and for the component manufacturer to do its work, there are certain molds and dies which are required, but those tooling cost, the mold cost is very high. So generally contract states that OEM will incur the cost and give the molds and dies free of cost to Tata. Tata is not going to incur that. Okay. So contract says that Apple has to, apply that cost, use its cost, and it has to incur the cost of molds and dies and then provide those molds and dies to component manufacturer so that it can produce. Yes. Now question comes, molds and dies which are given free of cost. Is this a supply? Answer is no. Why? Because consideration is not there. When consideration is not there, schedule number 1 applies. In schedule number 1, do you think any of the paragraph is applying? Is this permanent disposal? No. Paragraph number 1 does not apply. This is a temporary disposal. Why? Because once the contract is done, component manufacturer, whatever I have made a contract with the CM, let's say it is of 2 years. If it is done, molds or dies will return to me. So paragraph 1 does not apply. Does paragraph number 2 apply? No. Why? Because they are not related persons and they are not distinct persons. Paragraph number 3 is between principal and agent. This is not my agent. Will paragraph number 4 apply? No, it is not an import of service case. Is this clear? Come on. Let's move to next. Free samples and gifts. So you are giving something away for free. Is it a supply? No. Consideration is not there. Unless schedule number 1 applies. That is if you have taken ITC. In general, if I have taken a good, no ITC is there and I give it as free gift or sample. Yes. So in that case, this is not a supply. ITC also on, free gifts and something gets spoiled. ITC is also blocked. So this will not be a supply unless some specific schedule number 1 paragraph applies. For example, I am giving this gift to my related person. Then maybe it will apply, but in general, no. Buy one, get one free. So I buy one item, but I get 2 items in the price of 1. Is this a supply? Or there is some element of gifting or something? No, it is a supply. It's just 2 items at the price of 1. So I am paying the price, right? I'm paying low, I'm paying more. That does not care. That is irrelevant for being a supply. I'm paying something, I'm getting 2 items for it. This is a normal supply. Then schedule number 2, not a very important part from your exam point of view. 1 or 2 things are important. Schedule number 2 does not focus on something is a supply or not. Yes, if something is a supply or not, that is the matter of jurisdiction of section 7 and schedule number 1. Schedule number 2 only says that if you have classified something as a supply, I will only tell you whether it is goods or services. Pay attention now. Transfer of title is goods because you're selling something. If you don't sell something, but you give something, you give some person a right to use it without transfer of title. That means it is giving on rent. Let's say I tell you, you can use this phone, but I'm not transferring the title. So you are going to use it temporarily. That is a service. Next, hire purchase agreement. Hire purchase means the ownership will be transferred to you, but at a later date. For GST, it does not matter it is a later date or not. It is a goods. Lease, easement, license, renting, everything is services. Job work. What do you mean by job work? I apply some process to goods owned by you. You are the principal, I am the job worker. You give me the goods, I will apply some treatment on it. It is possible that in that process, I am going to use some of my own goods also. It is possible in job work. Let's say I am using my color, ink, dye, whatever it is. But at the end, the inherent nature of job work is services. Next, transfer of business assets. Now let's say I'm closing my business and I'm transferring the business asset. What is it? Goods or services? Goods. But let's say, for example, I'm putting the business assets to private use or I'm giving to someone for use and then I'm going to recover back. It is a service because it is a temporary transfer. So it is kind of a service. It is kind of giving on rent. If I close my business or I cease to be a taxable person, whatever existing goods are, they are considered to be supply. They are considered to be deemed supply. So you have to pay tax on it. And that supply will be considered as goods. Exceptions too. What is this exception? This exception is actually not for goods, but it is for exception of supply. That if tomorrow, instead of me, I am ceasing to be a taxable person, so I am going outside the scope of GST, but someone else is going to step in. My personal representative, my son will carry on the business. So he is going to carry on and then he will supply the goods in normal course of business. So today, when I am ceasing to be a taxable person, this is not a supply, hence not a supply of goods also. Secondly, I am transferring the business as going concern. I cease to be a taxable person because I sold my business as a going concern. Going concern means it's a running business. I'm not closing it down. This transfer as a going concern is exempt under chapter number 4. So no GST, hence obviously no scope of being a supply of goods. Renting of immovable property is also service. Yes, it is a service. Now what about construction? If you're buying an under construction property, it is under the scope of GST. Why? It is considered as supply of services. But if you buy a ready-made property, so for that you have to learn a technical condition for writing in the exam that if 100% consideration, not even rupee 1 should be paid earlier, 100% consideration is given to the developer after the earlier of 2 dates. After the earlier of 2 dates. What is that 2 dates? Completion certificate or first occupation. Both basically denote one thing, that the property is ready to stay. It is ready to move in. So 100% consideration given after the earlier of 2 dates, no GST because it is not a supply. Yes. IPR use. IPR use. You give someone the right to use your copyright or patent or whatever your IPR is, trademark is, and you charge something. So you are giving service. This is kind of giving on rent, not a physical property, but IPR, but it is a service. You provide the service of software customization, developing software. In the pre-GST, the software was also at some places, in some instances, was undergoing double taxation because it was considered as goods also, sold as a CD or pen drive, and somewhere there was an element of service also involved. So now the schedule number 2 clarifies software means services. You develop software for someone and then it will be considered as a service because you are doing it for them. Paragraph number 5E, very, very important. If you agree to the obligation to tolerate, to do something, or to refrain from doing something, and this whatever obligation you're agreeing to, this is not a legal obligation. You gave me 5,000 rupees for IDT class. Now I'm agreeing to the obligation to do an act to teach you. This is not covered here because that is already my legal obligation. Okay, so something is not a legal obligation, but apart from that, I voluntarily agree to do something, to tolerate something or refrain something. That is the supply of services. More discussion will follow soon, but I will tell you for this, there is another condition that for this to be a supply of service, an express agreement needs to be there. An express agreement needs to be there and consideration obviously needs to be there. That is covered below. Okay. Now, what is the example of refrain, tolerate and do an act? In simple words, I will tell you. Refrain, example, non-compete fee. So I agree not to compete with you in an area. Tolerate something. Let's say there is a loudspeaker going on for which I agree to tolerate the loudspeaker, but I charge something from that DJ owner. So that is covered here. To do an act, it can be any act. For example, there is a hazardous factory working here and that person agrees to, treat the waste before disposing it off and he charges me something for it. So he agrees to the obligation to do something, that is cleaning the waste, treating the waste before disposal. So that is also part of GST. It is a part of supply of services. Now, two composite supplies which are going to be considered as services. Again, pre-GST, they were under double taxation. They were considered as goods plus services because of their inherent nature of being composite supply. This composite supply, I'm not talking about what I discussed at the start. This composite supply is basically goods plus services are involved, but they will be considered as services. So inherently, they are a bundle, but they are going to be considered as services only because Schedule 2 has clarified. What do you mean by works contract? Understand. Works contract means with respect to immovable property. The term works contract is a definition which is associated only and only to an immovable property, not a movable property. Is this clear? First of all, so works contract involves goods plus element, but with respect to immovable property. Formal definition, if you want, you can just read it once here. You can pause and read it. Nothing to be analyzed as such in detail in the revision video. So this is with respect to immovable property. So construction, the contractor gives you the construction service, erection service, fabrication with respect to the immovable property. It involves goods plus services. So this is a service plus goods. So in the building, he's selling you the cement, brick, AC, whatever you are getting it fitted, and you pay a wholesale amount to that works contractor. So that is a part of works contractor service. But yes, technically it will be considered as services under GST. Second, restaurant services except alcoholic liquor for human consumption because it is a non-GST supply. Restaurant services, again, they are selling you the food item also somewhere and they are giving you the service also. But despite of that, in GST, we are going to consider them as services. Is this clear? Now, certain CBSE clarifications, pay attention. Tenancy rights, which is known as Pagdi system. Here is a owner of the property. Here is a tenant of a property. Tenant pays tenancy premium for tenancy rights. What is the tenancy premium? This premium is paid to have some say in the tenancy. So tomorrow this tenant can keep someone else instead of him. To have this option of tenancy right, he pays a tenancy premium. Owner can also pay a tenancy premium to tenant, for example, in case of early vacation. Contract of tenancy was for 10 months. After 6 months, owner says to the tenant that I want you to leave. I will pay you tenancy premium. Is tenancy premium under GST? Answer is yes. It is very much taxable because it is considered just like supply of service of rental. Okay? Is this okay? So if you give a property on rent, this is just like that. Tenancy premium is exactly like that. Okay, so this is covered under supply of services, paragraph number 2, schedule 2, that we talked about the renting. Okay, now one thing the question will state that because of the local laws, the registration charges, like you get a property registered, you buy a property, you pay registration charges and you pay the stamp duty on it. So question will say that on the tenancy premium also, stamp duty and registration charges have been paid. So will that impact your answer that you have stated it is under GST? Answer is no. Just because registration charge and stamp duty has been paid, this does not change the nature of the tenancy premium. It is still a supply of service. It is still under the ambit of GST. One important point to be noted, sometimes the rent that tenant pays to the owner is exempt. That I will cover in chapter number 4. Sometimes the rent that tenant pays to the owner is exempt. Okay. If that is the case, then tenancy premium by tenant to owner is also exempt. But owner, whatever is paying to tenant, that is always taxable as supply of service. Clear? Okay. PLSC, Priority Sector Lender Certificate. What is happening? Example, government has asked every bank to provide minimum rupees 100 loans in agriculture sector. So that is a priority sector identified by government for which lending needs to happen. HDFC lending was rupees 150, so 50 more than required 100, and ICICI Bank lending was rupees 90 and less. There was a shortfall of 10. So what will HDFC Bank do? ICICI Bank can buy this priority sector lending certificate from HDFC Bank, because if HDFC Bank sells rupees 10 certificate, its net lending will be 140, which is still above the target. But if 10 is received by ICICI Bank, it will complete the target of 100. So this is allowed. There is an e-Kuber portal of RBI on which these transactions happen. 1-2 points to be noted. This will be considered as a supply of goods, and this has been clarified by RBI as well. Second point to be noted, this will always be in the nature of IGST. Regardless of where the supplier are, you don't have to analyze place of supply here. You have to make this transaction in intercourse, and it will be an IGST transaction. And third point to be noted, RCM will apply. Both are registered, it's fine. But because there are a lot of branches of the banks, it will be very difficult to understand who is paying to whom. So RCM will apply, IGST will apply, and RCM will apply because this is the person which is getting the benefit. So it is being asked to comply with the GST under RCM. Next, supply of food and beverages at cinema halls. I go to watch a movie at PVR. I want to see animal movie. I buy the ticket of 450 rupees. And whatever popcorn, food, beverages I want, I buy in the interval from the kiosk, from the counter at the hall. In that case, that particular food beverages that I bought, that is taxable separately as a restaurant service. Simple. But tomorrow, while buying the ticket, I buy the ticket of 1000 rupees instead of 450, which includes food and beverages that will be served to me in the interval. In this case, now it becomes a natural bundle composite supply where principal element will be of that particular movie. So you have to see whether you are paying at the one time, one shot payment, which includes the food and beverage, or you are buying it separately. Is it clear? Shares held in the subsidiary by holding company. Just because a holding company, let's say tomorrow, Reliance Industries Limited is holding 51% shares in Jio. Now the question comes, by holding these kind of 51% ownership and being Jio a subsidiary of Reliance, is there any supply of service by Reliance to Jio? No. Securities are not in the scope of GST, and this is a mere holding of securities. Now the question may come to your mind that, sir, why this clarification was required? Clarification was required because there is an entry 997171. Entry means SSE code. So all the goods have HSN code, harmonized system of nomenclature, and all the services have service accounting code. Okay, so this particular service accounting code states like this. See, the entry reads that particular SSE, that services provided by holding companies, that is holding security in companies and enterprises for the purpose of controlling interest. So this created confusion in your mind, in our mind, in the market, that maybe this kind of holding more than 50% shares, that is controlling interest, is this a supply? Government clarified that no, just because there is an SSE entry does not mean it is a supply. For supply, you need to have the parameters of section 7. There should be goods or services. Here there is no service, and securities are not goods. There is no consideration. Okay, and business is there, but the parameters of supply are not fulfilled. There is no supply happening here. So just because there is an SSE entry does not mean that it becomes a supply. Is this clear? Yes. Come on, let's move to next. The paragraph number 5E that I talked about above, agreeing to obligation of refrain, tolerating and do an act. The examples I have already covered. Conditions I have already covered. The second condition of consideration was not required to be stated. Why? Because it already exists in section number 7, subsection 1, clause number A. But yes, this condition I told that there needs to be an agreement. Just because someone is paying me, it cannot be assumed that we have an agreement. There should be an express or implied, oral or written agreement or contract that I'm agreeing to do something and the other person is paying me. Now we will be discussing the taxability of few items. Now this is very specific in nature. This will come as a part in your adjustment. what we will do instead, I had made a short table in the class. We will discuss from that, and I will tell you the reasons as well, whether we are taxing something or not, what is the reason. So liquidated damages, this is basically we are talking about something is a consideration or not, and thereby it is being under the GST or not. Yes. So liquidated damages. Now what is liquidated damages? The contract states that suppose you and me are in the contract, and the contract states that whichever party breaches the contract will pay an amount to the other. Now the question comes whether that amount is a consideration or not, because if you say yes, then it will be under GST. If you say no, it will not be under GST. So for liquidated damages, the answer is no, this is not under GST. I will give you a golden line for it. This golden line that I'm going to state needs to be a part of your answer. Whatever the liquidated damages clause existed, that was not to tolerate. Basically, the question comes that liquidated damages means the other party, did it tolerate something? Did it tolerate something? Did it tolerate the breach? Because if you say yes, then tolerating something becomes a part of supply of services under paragraph number 5E. So whatever these items are, these are linked with respect to paragraph number 5B. Yes. So liquidated damages, does it mean someone is tolerating the breach? Answer is no. So the golden line, as I was saying, is that this is not for tolerating something, but this is for not tolerating. I will underline that line. Pay attention here. The payment is not for the liquidated damages cannot be said to be consideration for tolerating the breach, but it is for not tolerating the breach. A person enters into contract. You and me entered into a contract for the purpose of performing it. Our intention was not that someone will breach, another party will earn something out of it. So that liquidated damages is not a earning per se. It is a mere flow of money. These lines need to be stated in your answer. Yes. So let's focus here. Is it liquidated damages a part of GST? No, you are not tolerating something. Check dishonor, fine or penalty. So if you give me a check which is bad means you don't have the funds required, but you still give me a check and I deposit it and it is bounced. Okay, the check is bounced. For that there is a fine levied and I recover that fine from you. Is that a consideration for me? No. My intention was that I should receive check with proper payment. I was not intending to earn that amount. It merely happened. So it is not for tolerating the bouncing of the check, but it is for not tolerating it. So that English line, this very, very important line needs to be there in your answer. So check dishonor, fine, penalty, not under GST. Penalty for violation of laws, same reasoning, not under GST. This is not toleration. Government does not tolerate you violating. The penalty is to discourage you from committing any contravention. Forfeiture of salary or bond amount. Now what happens? I signed a bond amount with my employer. Let's say I'm working in Flipkart and I signed a 2 years bond amount that okay, I will not leave before 2 years. If I resign under 2 years, then I will pay 2 lakh rupees to the Flipkart. And this happens, let's say after 7 months I resign. Now the Flipkart that 2 lakh, is it a consideration? Answer is no. I did not receive anything in return, and this was not to tolerate something, but it was for not tolerating me leaving early. Okay, this was to discourage me. So not under GST. But in case of utility bills, there are some where the GST will be applicable. Pay attention. In utility bills, the late payment is tolerated. So the gas bill or some utility bill you will receive that if you pay by the due date 100 rupees, after due date 105 rupees. So that is tolerating you paying late. So it is a part of GST. Fixed charges power. Now wherever electricity related charges are levied, generally it is levied in two forms. First is the fixed form, second is the variable form. So let's say 100 rupees is fixed. Now regardless you use the electricity or not, how many units you are using, that is immaterial, and variable depends upon how much you use. So fixed amount of charge, can we say that the electricity company is tolerating you not using minimum consumption units? Answer is no. It is just a form of charging. It is a way companies charge. So that is not under GST. Cancellation charges in tour and travel, they are ancillary in nature. They are a part of the bundle where the principal element is the tour and travel. So given the nature of industry, it becomes taxable as a part of the bundle. So yes, GST is applicable there. Premature lease termination or premature FD that you break, you pay some penalty. Premature lease termination, you pay the penalty. That is tolerating you leaving early or you breaking the FD early. So that is under the GST. And loan prepayment or FD early mature, that we can have I can have my FD matured early. So that penalty also, it is a part of GST. So specific items you may feel that sir, apart from these items, if something is asked, then how to analyze? I say I won't go beyond this. Okay, so these 1, 2, 3, 4 you need to learn. Obviously we have discussed the logic, but you need to learn at the end of the day whether the GST will be applicable or not. 3 golden lines that need to be there in your answer. That's something that you're not charging under GST. It is not for tolerating but for not tolerating. Okay, next agreement condition, you can state that here there is no agreement to tolerate anything, which is one of the essential conditions for paragraph 5e. And wherever you are saying no GST, you will state that it is a mere flow of money transaction. Is it clear? Okay, yes, we can move ahead. We have summarized it. Non-supply is under GST. Non-supply means neither supply of goods nor supply of services. Three topics are included in this. First is schedule number 3, second is notification, and third is circular. Let's talk about schedule number 3. Services by employee to employer in the course of employment. So please pay attention. You only write in exam employee to employer. No, write employee to employer in the course of employment. So whatever the contract of employment is there, and under that whatever services are performed, that is outside the scope of GST. Let's say I am an employee of EY, but I have a family business. If that with respect to that business I am giving something, it is not in the course or nature of employment, that will be liable to GST, that too under forward charge mechanism. Yes, now pay attention everyone. I'm giving you a simple example, not simple, it's a simple example, but very, very important one given in your material. I am joining as a, let's say, HR manager in Flipkart Limited. Okay. And Flipkart pays me, apart from the salary, 5 lakh rupees to agree to not to join Amazon. Is this taxable under GST? Pause the video and answer it in the comments. I would really appreciate if you do that. I will tell you the answer. It is taxable under GST because that is not in the course of employment. What is in the course of employment? That I am agreeing against my salary, but this is something I am agreeing as an individual not to join a rival company. So that is under GST. Next, whatever services are given by any kind of a court, High Court, Supreme Court, District Court, Tribunal, NCLT, they are those all fees that they charge, that is outside the scope of GST. Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission technically is not a tribunal, but it is just like a tribunal, so that is also outside GST. Whatever functions are performed by MP, MLA, Prime Minister, Constitutional Post, Chief Justice of India, Comptroller, Auditor General of India, all those constitutional and government posts are outside the scope of GST. If any duty is being performed by any person, chairperson, member of a body established by government, government means central or state or local authority. Example, Central Vigilance Commission. In that case, that is also outside the scope of GST, being not a supply. Now pay attention, in these particular bodies which are established by government, if I am working as an employee, then I will be covered in paragraph number 1 itself. If I am not working as an employee and it is by a government, then I will be covered here. But if I am not working as an employee and the body is also not established by government, I will be covered under GST because it is not covered under schedule number 3. Okay, then death related everything on sympathetic grounds, everything is exempt. Funeral, deceased, transportation, burial, all the expenses are outside the scope of GST. Land and building, land obviously always outside the scope of GST. Building, depending on whether it is an under construction building or completed, then we will decide whether it is a supply of service. If it is a completed building, no GST, non-supply. What if the land is developed, pipeline is laid down, so soil tilling is done, for some process is done on the land, does not matter. A developed land is still outside the scope of GST. Although on a side note, the development charges that I am paying to the vendor, that is under the scope of GST. Actionable claims I have already clarified. Next is the merchant trading. What is 7 merchant trading? Merchant trading means I am buying goods from US. The goods do not come into India. Meanwhile, I have sold the goods to UK. So goods directly go from US to UK without entering into India. That is outside the scope of GST. Inbound sales. I imported goods. The goods are in my warehouse. Yes, so technically I have not cleared the goods yet. The goods are not yet cleared yet. Into bond bill of entry has been filed. X bond bill of entry has not been filed. So goods are lying in the warehouse. Meanwhile, I sold the goods to Mr. X. This sale is outside the scope of GST. Clear? Now Mr. X will go and get the goods cleared. There he will pay IGST. Once cleared, let's say Mr. X sells back to me. Sells back to those goods to me. Then GST will be applicable. Okay. High sea sales. I imported certain goods. Goods were in high seas. Before coming to India, before clearance, I have sold the goods. I have transferred the title to Mr. A, not a scope of GST. Okay. Now, what about a director? Will GST be applicable or not? So understand one thing. Director is possible. He is an employee, or director is not an employee. So both cases are possible. Executive directors act as employee. If they are employee, then it will be covered under schedule number 3, paragraph number 1, outside the scope of GST. But what if he is not an employee? Then it will be under GST. And plus RCM also applies. Chapter number 2 will talk about it. All the services by director in official capacity are covered under RCM. Company will pay the tax. Okay. Director word is associated only with company, not partnership firm, not LLP, not any other structure. What about independent director? Question will not specifically state whether independent director is an employee or not, because independent director can never be an employee. Why? Section number 149 subsection 6 of Companies Act 2013 talks about the independence criteria, and there it has been clearly stated that independent director will never be an employee. Also, it seems to be very logical, right? If I'm an independent director, how can I be an employee of the company? Okay, next we talk about the non-supplies through a notification. Two non-supplies were covered. First, any services with respect to activity of functions entrusted to municipality and panchayat under article number 243W and 243G. Now, what are these functions entrusted? These functions are entrusted with respect to the local level of governance for ensuring safety, cleanliness, treatment, basic cleanliness, basic all the services which happen at the local level, garden maintenance, basic safety, all those points are covered with respect to this panchayat and municipality. The services exactly are covered under 11th and 12th schedule. If you want, you can give a read, not as such required. Material has given as a footnote, but okay, you don't need to learn as such. I have covered certain basics, so you will have a fair idea whether it is covered under 243G or W or not. Okay, so whatever services are with respect to these functions, they are exempt. So GST, if it is not exempt, we will say it is not a supply, because technically exempt is defined separately. So this is not a supply, so that GST is not applicable. Cost will be low. Now, grant of alcoholic liquor license. Now, what is happening here? I go to my state government, I ask for license of alcoholic liquor. This is not a supply. This is not a supply. So against the license, whatever consideration I will pay, the GST will not be applicable. Is this clear? Now, if I go for any other license, let's say Kirana store license, truck license, road license, that everywhere GST will be applicable. Is it clear? With respect to truck, there is an all India permit, which is a separate thing covered under exemption. But here with respect to non-supply, only and only alcoholic liquor license is covered. Okay. Now, there was another non-supply by way of circular. So three things with respect to non-supply: notification, schedule number 3, and circular. Now, what is happening in circular? They have written here interstate movement of various modes of conveyance between distinct person. Let's understand this. There is a distinct person in state A and state B. Let's say he is in Delhi, and there is a distinct person in, let's say, Kerala. Now, there are two states. Yes, distinct persons, both are, let's say, registered 25/4. Now, what happens is that this person sends a conveyance containing goods, people, passenger, or for purpose of repair maintenance. So let's say the conveyance, let's say this is a truck which is being sent from Delhi to Kerala for the purpose of repair maintenance in Kerala, or it contains goods or passengers. I'm not talking about GST on this. I'm talking about this conveyance itself. Can we say that this conveyance is a supply? Sir, but there is no consideration. Yes, but because it is under distinct person, the GST officer started invoking schedule number 1, and they started saying that this is a supply itself, and tomorrow it will come back here again a supply. But this was wrong somewhere, right? So this was clarified. This was clarified that this conveyance would be considered as a supply. Instead of this, what it can be train, bus, truck, tanker, trailer, vessel, container, aircraft, any form of mode of conveyance. Is this clear? But sir, what if this is to be supplied from Kerala? If this conveyance is going to Kerala for the purpose of further supply, here it is going to be sold, then this will also be a supply. Second query comes, sir, what about intrastate? Since this states only for interstate, and we know that 25/4, under 25/4, the distinct persons can be in the same state also. That way, in that particular case also, this particular circular's benefit can be taken. Practically, we take it. Is this clear? Now, just to clarify, this repair maintenance GST will be applicable. Okay. And this same treatment will apply for transfer of rig, tools, spares, and all the goods on wheels, for example, cranes. So if tools and spares are transferred instead of conveyance, same treatment will apply. It will not be considered as supply. So let's say tools are being given to Kerala distinct person. Why? For the purpose of some use or for the purpose of some repair maintenance. So that is okay. That is not a supply because the intention is not to sell it. Now, composite and mixed supply we have already covered. Taxation aspect we have already covered. Composite supply shall be treated as principal supply. So whatever the tax rate is of the principal supply, that is the predominant element, that will be taxable. And whatever is the mixed supply, then you will pick the tax rate of the highest rate tax, whatever the element has the highest tax rate, and the entire supply shall be considered as the supply of that particular item which is highest taxed. I hope this is clear. This is a short read on how to determine whether something is a composite supply or not directly testable in exam. This is just a guideline that you see how the industry is performing. If majority service providers, or that, you know, whatever the item is being provided, if majority are giving this together as a bundle, that means it's a composite supply. If every customer expects it to be together, that means it's a composite supply. Yes. If it's a single fixed price, no matter how much package you are using, that's a composite supply. For example, I go to a hotel, Hyatt hotel, and I say I don't want to eat breakfast. So are they going to reduce some rate from the tariff? Answer is no. That means it's a composite supply. You decide what you want or not, but the package is going to be the same. So this is just for your very simple reading, and whatever you are not able to classify under composite, that will be mixed supply. You don't need to learn this. The feel factor means just apply logic, you will be able to get it. For example, I will give you TV plus TV mounting set on which the TV is hanged. This is composite supply. Yes, I have given you an example, single rent deed for commercial as well as the rental properties, for commercial as well as, let's say, residential property. Now this is a mixed supply. Clear? So you will have a fair idea seeing the facts of the cases. Now last page, pay attention, CBSE clarifications. Printing industry. Now printing industry, I know you guys also have an idea of how we need to answer, whether do I need to make it a service or goods. But a silly mistake happens here. See, before jumping to whether it is service or goods, you first have to state that it is a composite supply, because it involves element of goods also and services also. If I get something printed, the person is giving and selling the paper also, and is giving me printing service also. So first state that this is a composite supply as per section 2 clause 30. Then you state that what is the principal element. Now principal element can be service also and it can be goods also. When will it be service? When you are giving content to the printer. Let's say my IDT books, I gave the PDF content and I got the printing done. Here the principal element is services. Or for example, annual report, my company's annual report. So I gave the content and got the annual report printed. But example, goods, for example, I gave him my logo and I got it printed on napkins, on pens, on calendars. So here the focus is on these goods. He's not giving me any printing service. I'm not giving any content per se. I'm just giving him a logo and he's essentially selling me this particular goods. So here the principal element, that is predominant element, is goods. So before classifying this, you please state that this is a composite supply at first. Otherwise you may lose your marks. Okay. Now food supplied to patient. Now it depends whom you are supplying to, which patient. If it's an admitted patient, then it will form part of the bundle of the healthcare, where the predominant element is healthcare, and in most cases healthcare will be exempt. That I will cover in chapter number 4. But if it is given to attendants, visitors, or OPD patients who are not admitted, then in that case it will be taxable separately. Why? Because it is not a part of bundle. Here it is a part of bundle and it is never taxed separately, it is never charged separately. The overall hospital bill will come, in which they will charge the food given to the admitted patient. Clear? Now retreading of tires. What is retreading of tires? Sometimes you lose the grip of the tire, for which this retreading is done so that it has a very good grip on the road as well. Now the question comes that the old tire belong to whom? If it belongs to the customer, so I have my tire, I have my car's tire or my bike's tire. I go to my nearby shop and I tell him that this is my tire, just get the retreading done. Technically, there is some sale of goods also, because he's giving me that, rubber also, whatever is being used, and he's giving me retreading service also. But what is the principal element? This is a retreading service, right? And the old tire belongs to me. So if it belongs to me, this is a supply of service by that person. But if it belongs to the supplier of retreaded tires only, means it is his tire only on which he has done retreading and he is giving me. So this is kind of a purchase of tire for me. I don't care if it's a new tire, old tire. I am buying a retreaded tire from him. So for me, this is a supply of goods. For me, it is a purchase of goods. For him, it is a supply of goods. Mixed supply, how to determine? You just have to see whether it is a composite supply or not. Whatever residuary is a mixed supply. But in some cases, for example, car servicing. For example, car servicing, there is a bundle of goods and services. For example, if you see your bill of car servicing, here they will charge goods separately and services separately. This being a bundle, but still this is a special case. There are some special cases where the items retain their own tax rates. They do not get classified into the composite and mixed supply. Here there is a bundle, but still goods will be taxed separately, services will be taxed separately. Not many examples are there. Mostly they will ask composite mix, but you should have an idea that some cases all the supplies may carry independent significance. Again, facts have to be seen. With this, I mark my end of chapter number 1. Please ensure you are solving some questions. I had given a Super 40 list that was shared on Telegram. If you can understand basic Hindi, you can watch my video as well. And yes, so with this, chapter number 1 ends. Do solve the questions. In case of any queries, you can reach out. If you genuinely like the content, ensure you're commenting. It helps me to understand whether the intended benefit is going to the students or not, and it acts as a motivation for me also, right? Some more portions I will be uploading in English so that you guys can also take benefit out of it. And yeah, so till we meet in our next lecture, all the very best. Study well, take care, be safe. Bye bye.